our visit here with...
If you love Baltimore sports, you'll love WNST.net.
Marsh, as we talk football with the former head coach of the Baltimore Ravens, now with the NFL Network. And Coach, it's like old school now here. Way back in the day when you and I were sitting in the studio taking the calls from the fans, and Coach is like that tonight because we've got the Bulldog.
That's right.
And Coach Greg Marsh, who you met tonight, he's our everyday fan, so he'll be asking all the Kyle Bowler questions when we get to that. So
yeah, he's taking it back to day one, man.
You realize before I met you two, this beard wasn't this color.
That's right. We helped that thing along,
right.
man.
This gray patch right here is you. This gray patch right here is probably you.
But you're a very smart man, and I know you have your agent on this one already. Grecian Formula endorsement for Brian Billick.
Now I tell you what, I will readily admit I am arrogant, I'm egotistical, but I'm not vain. I'll cop for the first two, but not the third one.
All right, Coach. There's been a lot of ground covered already, but I want to get with you. And first question out of the box is: you were a part of this organization in Baltimore. You've been able to go out now and see others. Talk about the work rates, the way the scouts go at it, the way Ozzie goes at it, and I think more so than no other organization in the NFL doing their homework. I've heard the stories, doing their homework about what guys going to get drafted, where they're taking him, and what kind of value he has for that organization.
Yeah, you know, first off, every club has hard workers. You don't outwork anybody in the NFL. You don't. I mean, everybody works hard. Having said that, I think the key to the Ravens' success, beyond having great scouts, integration with the coaching staff, Eric DeCosta does a great job coordinating it all. I think Ozzie Newsome creates an atmosphere whereby he truly listens to the interaction and solicits the input from the coaches and scouts genuinely to where they feel like they can have their say. Now, at the end of the day, there has to be a singular voice. There has to be the one play call. I always equated Ozzie looking at that draft board like the Russell Crowe character in A Beautiful Mind, where, you know, things start pulling out. He after listening to all this, and he's a phenomenal listener. When you sit in the draft meetings with Ozzie, he really doesn't say a lot. He will prompt opinions across the board. He'll put people on different tasks. He'll make notes. And then if you're careful, you'll hear a week, 2 weeks down the line, sitting with the scout, that subtle, now tell me about this again. Because he remembered or wrote down what you said. And he's going to check the courage of your conviction. Do you still believe that? At the end of the day, Ozzie has a huge capacity to take all that information in, let everybody have their say, and then now it's time to pull the trigger. And that is a truly unique talent, and I think it's a big part of their success.
You know, that's a pretty brilliant process that you guys had and in some ways still have there. And one of the things that I believe, outsider looking in, but covering it all these years and listening to you and talking to you, is the reason that process works, I believe, is all the guys in the rooms, because you trust them. You know, I look back at those stats that you put together. I know, I'm biased, maybe. You know, here I am, I got a Ravens tattoo on my leg, oops. But those stats were about as good, top to bottom, as I've ever seen. Teachers across the board, all these guys going on, becoming head coaches, coordinators. So when Brian Billick has a meeting, or when Ozzie Newsome has a meeting, and he's jotting down little notes, and he has those men in the room, you can trust what's coming out of their mouths. Yes or no?
Yeah, and that's a big part of it. And I think we trusted the scouts, and Ozzie and the scouts trusted the coaches. Now, there's always going to be a little firewall. It's inevitable that at the end of the day, coaches, it's hard not to say you didn't bring in good enough players, and the scouts are going, you didn't coach them up good enough. You know, when the you know what hits the fan. But there's a great deal of respect there. And the key is you got to foster that communication. I want my offensive line coach working in conjunction with the scouts, challenging one another. I used to do something a little different. Once we got to this part of the draft, your board's kind of set. I'd sequester the coaches, and we'd put together our top 100. And at first, the scouts and even Ozzie were a little like, well, what are you doing? I mean, just to kind of shove up our backside if it doesn't go quite well. No. What I wanted to get the coach's perspective, strictly from a coach's standpoint. How would you rate the top 100? And then I would compare. scouts or the big board had a guy at 10 and the coaches had him at 12, or they had him at 20 and we had him at 25, okay, marching bear on fire. What I want to know is when the one board had somebody at 30 and the other board had him at 45. Not to say who's right and wrong, but I want to hear about this guy again. Because one group or the other seems to have a different opinion or miss something here that I want to hear us go through one more time. And again, it's just one more check and balance.
Expand on that teaching role, because let's face it, it's no accident that guys like Jelly Roll, Lionel Dalton make it and are successful here. It's about once they're in the fold, you have to teach them the way that you play football and how they fit into your system, correct?
Yeah, the longer you're together, the more you and the more consistent your structure is. The more your scouts know what player to go after for that role. One of the reasons that the defense is so good over that period of time, even though it's been different coaches, the template that you set, there's been continuity in that style. Subtle differences to be sure, but you can continue to draft that style. One of the limitations offensively is because of some of our inabilities to generate. And keep in mind now, let's flip on the other side of that. Offensively, whether it was Ted Marchibroda, myself, Jim Fossil, Cam Cameron calling the plays, there's not been the same continuity of offensive productivity, but you have to look beyond the individuals. And that's a pretty talented group, notwithstanding itself, of guys that were even head coaches that had a track record for that productivity. But so you did not have the even continuity, therefore the players are plugging into that system. And now with Cam Cameron, under John, if they can continue that, you're going to see an even heightened sense of continuity and improvement because they're staying consistent, right or wrong, that's to be determined, but consistent in terms of what they want from the players they're bringing into the system.
When John Harbaugh came in, did you have any words of wisdom or advice for him taking over?
Yeah, don't look in that third drawer. I'd change the towels out if I were you. No, John's an outstanding coach, and I knew John before. Andy Reid and I obviously go back a long way, and you know, it was a little while before, and I've done a lot with John, given my coach's show. He's always been very responsive, great to work with, and always very, gee, coach, what do you think of that? You got to be a little careful about when you're the guy before and saying, gee, I think you got to do this or that. But John's always been very interactive that way. The bit of advice that you do give to coaches, and I've mentored a lot of them, is particularly when you become a head coach, the bottom line is, and you've heard the observation many times, you got to be yourself. You can't be Andy Reid any more than my coaches went on and tried to be me, any more than I tried to be Denny Green or Bill Walsh. If you try to act a certain way that's not true, you can't maintain it.
If you love Baltimore sports, you'll love WNST.net.